Hey guys, tonight we're heading into the shadowy hills of Arcadia. Yes, that Arcadia, the one that always shows up in ancient Greek poems like it's the chill countryside vacation spot of the gods. You're walking barefoot through long grass that smells faintly of thyme and goat. The sky is barely awake, a sleepy lavender stretching across low hills. Somewhere nearby, a stream is babbling like it's trying to get out of a bad conversation. You pass wild olive trees. You avoid a rock that definitely looks like it has opinions. You spot hoofprints, oddly small ones. And eventually, you find the mouth of a cave yawning open like a giant stone yawn. Congratulations! You've just arrived at the birthplace of Pan, the god of wild things, panic attacks, and questionable acoustics. Oh, and if you're planning to survive what's coming, spoiler, you probably won't. This is ancient mythology after all. Everyone's either turned into a tree seduced by moonlight or accidentally inventing musical instruments out of trauma. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You duck inside the cave. It's cool, earthy, and humid like someone turned a wine cellar into a forest whisper. Your feet scuff against the packed clay floor. The air hums softly, though that could just be your imagination, or not. In this cave, the boundaries blur quickly between sound and feeling. There are no torches, no carvings, just a feeling like you've interrupted something old. And then you hear it. A breathy giggle. Tiny. High-pitched. Coming from what it appears to be a mossy basket tucked between two rocks. You approach slowly, like the basket might bite. Inside, wrapped in goat wool and attitude, is a baby with tiny horns and legs that aren't quite human. His eyes gleam gold. His feet end in hooves. His nose twitches like he's considering sneezing on you just for fun. This is Pan, the newborn god of forests, flutes, and all things inconvenient. He lets out a noise that is technically a laugh, though it could also be the sound of a bagpipe being stepped on. You step back blinking. Pan grins wider. Some myths say he was born fully formed, laughing, bleeding, already covered in curly chest hair. Others say he was just an unusually loud baby and someone exaggerated from there. Historians still argue whether he was born in Arcadia or simply wandered into it, like a lost goat with confidence issues. What we do know is that no one expected that noise. You peek outside the cave, nothing stirs, and yet the cave vibrates. You turn back. Pan has begun crawling, not walking, not stumbling, crawling, with a kind of reckless, four-hoofed determination. He rams into a rock, laughs, rams again. You're starting to understand why the gods panicked, literally. This cave deep in Arcadia becomes his nursery. It's not child-proofed. There's no Olympian safety gate, but it echoes. And for Pan, that's enough. Every sound he makes returns to him larger, deeper, more dramatic. It's like raising a toddler inside a megaphone, and he loves it. By the time you find a place to sit on a smooth stone shaped like someone gave up sculpting halfway through, a squirrel sprints past your foot like it's running for its acorns. Behind it, Pan, laughing, flailing, shouting a mix of vowels and squeals. You lean your head back against the cool stone wall and sigh. This is going to be a long myth. You wake in the same cave, though. Wake is generous. You were never really asleep, just sort of lulled into a trance by the steady, repetitive thudding of tiny goat hooves against rock. Pan's still at it. He's invented a game. It involves shrieking, running into a stalagmite, and then giggling like he's just invented comedy. Every sound rebounds through the cave like it's auditioning for an amphitheater. You shift stiff from sleeping against stone and blink at the sunlight filtering through cracks above. Arcadian caves, it turns out, aren't so much sealed tombs as poorly insulated echo chambers. Pan's horns are a little longer this morning, his fur curlier. Still very baby-shaped, but somehow wilder, like a woodland toddler who's never heard the word no. You hear a rustle, then a flutter, then sandals. Hermes is here? Yes, that Hermes. Winged sandals, messenger god. patron saint of multitasking and passive-aggressive errands. He's crouched at the entrance, eyebrow arched, already regretting this assignment. He steps in with the careful, almost bored grace of someone who once delivered a letter to a hydra mid-feeding. "So, this is him," he mutters. You nod. You think you nod. Or maybe you just twitch. Pan squeals. Hermes flinches. "Oh, yeah. That's definitely a child of nature," he mutters, then steps forward and picks the baby up by the armpits like he's holding a slippery eel. Pan immediately licks Hermes's cheek. Charming Hermes says dry as week-old olives. Now, depending on which myth you consult, and there are several, because Greek mythology is basically ancient fan fiction, with no consistent editor, Hermes might be Pan's dad. Or maybe just a really disinterested uncle. Scholars still argue whether Hermes fathered Pan with a nymph or just got stuck delivering him to Olympus like a screaming fruit basket. Either way, Hermes sighs, tightens his cloak, and mutters, "Let's get this over with." He disappears in a blur of wings and sarcasm. And just like that, the cave is quiet. Too quiet. You crawl outside, blink into the daylight, and see nothing but sun-dappled hills and a single goat chewing indifferently on a clump of thistle. That goat, you'll soon learn, is not just any goat. But you don't know that yet. You lie back in the grass and exhale. A minute later, the sky rumbles. You assume it's thunder. It is not. It's Olympus reacting to Pan. Reports will later describe the event as a disruption in divine tranquility. Hera fainted. Apollo dropped a harp. Zeus allegedly muttered, "Who let the goat scream?" Pan, bless his chaotic soul, has arrived on Mount Olympus. They won't know what to do with him. He's not elegant, not polished, not golden and glowing. He's loud, fuzzy, occasionally smelly, and when he screams in Olympus, it doesn't echo, it ripples. The gods, generally unflappable in their immortality, are deeply flapped. So Hermes, ever the problem solver, solves the problem in the only way he knows, returns Pan to Arcadia with a note pinned to his wool blanket that reads, "He's more your style. Good luck." And that's how Pan ends up being raised not by gods but by the wilds. The moss, the wind, and eventually the goat you saw earlier, who is now staring directly at you with one yellow eye and zero patience. You blink. She snorts and turns her back on you like you're not even worth headbutting. This, as it turns out, is Iga, and your myth just got hooved. Iga is not a cuddly goat. She's not one of those sweet, bleeding cartoon farmyard types. No. Iga is the kind of goat who looks like she's fought a thunderstorm and won. One of her horns is chipped. Her beard is matted. Her gaze is withering. She doesn't chew cud, she judges it. You follow her because, quite frankly, she's the only one who seems to know what's going on. She trudges through the hills like the goddess of goat errands. Pan follows, of course, galloping on all fours, occasionally falling, occasionally laughing, occasionally shrieking loud enough to make nearby trees think twice about staying rooted. The three of you reach a shady glen. There's a little pool, some wild thyme, a rock that looks suspiciously like a reclining lion but smells very much like mildew. Iga lowers herself with an exaggerated huff and stares at Pan like she's been assigned him as a group project. Pan, blissfully unaware, starts chewing on a stick and humming a note that seems to come from somewhere between siren alarm and confused flute. Iga sighs so deeply you feel it in your bones. Then she does something odd. She nudges Pan's stick. Not out of his mouth, just redirects it. Shows him how to press it against a hollow root. Pan squeaks. The sound changes. Something clicks in his goat boy brain. Iga watches, nodding imperceptibly. As if to say, "Yes, child, scream with purpose." This begins what ancient Arcadian scrolls probably would have called the first and most reluctant mentorship. Historians still argue whether Iga was a literal goat, a cursed nymph, or simply the patron spirit of not putting up with nonsense. But regardless of her origin, her impact is unmistakable. She becomes the silent instructor of the forest's wildest child. She teaches him which mushrooms make you see stars and which make you see your ancestors. She shows him how to leap without twisting an ankle, how to find water by sniffing stones, and how to use his echo not just to scare but to speak to test the shapes of caves and conversations alike. Pan, meanwhile, adds flair. He screams not because he's upset but because he likes the way it bounces. You find a mossy perch to watch this chaotic curriculum unfold. It's oddly soothing, like watching a storm learn to dance. One day, Pan invents a new game. He climbs atop a boulder, puffs up his chest like a half-deflated wineskin, and declares war on a bush. The bush does not respond. Pan shrieks at it anyway. Iga snorts. Pan shrieks again louder this time, and the bush rustles, possibly in response. Possibly because there's a snake in it. But Pan takes this as victory and breaks into a triumphant gallop that ends in a mud puddle and a yelp. Iga trudges over, licks the mud off his ear, and mutters something that sounds like idiot but in goat. This becomes routine. Each day, more screaming, more lessons, more mysterious forest wisdom. One morning, Iga headbutts a tree so hard a beehive falls, and Pan learns both the power of resonance and the taste of panic. That night, Pan sits beside her quietly for the first time. He hums not a shriek, not a squeal. Just a low, warbling note that slides along the cave walls like smoke. Iga grunts approval. Probably. You glance around. Fireflies blink lazily. Crickets start their rhythm. Somewhere nearby, a stream murmurs. And Pan, he hums. You lie back and wonder how the god of panic could look so peaceful. Then he shrieks again, because apparently a pine cone startled him. You sigh. Iga sighs louder. But even you have to admit this is starting to sound like music. You wake to a sound that's halfway between a panpipe and a goose, having an emotional breakdown. Pan has once again invented music. He's sitting cross-legged, well, as cross-legged as hooves allow outside the cave. A bundle of reeds twine and something suspiciously sticky is clutched in his tiny hands. He puffs into the makeshift instrument with all the enthusiasm of a bard who has no gigs and a lot of opinions. The melody, if you can call it that, ricochets through the forest, bouncing off oak trunks and startling a nearby rabbit into existential reconsideration. Iga watches from a distance, chewing on a thistle and exuding the exact same vibe as a parent who just wants 5 minutes of silence. Pan squeals in triumph. The notes are uneven, but there's a pattern now. Not quite music, not quite nonsense, but he's close. Closer than he's ever been to expressing something more than noise. You shift closer, careful not to interrupt the ritual. Pan tries again. The sound this time is surprisingly gentle, 2 notes that curl into each other like sleepy vines. He stops, blinks. Did he like that? You swear Iga nods, but she might just be adjusting her chewing angle. This, you realize, is the beginning of a myth that will outlive empires, the story of Pan and the panpipes. But it doesn't come from inspiration, it comes from obsession. From heartbreak. From Echo. Not the cave Echo, the person. Or rather the nymph. Echo arrives like moonlight, pale, tired, and done with everyone's nonsense. She was cursed, you see, by Hera, queen of the gods, patron of grudges. Echo's punishment was that she could only repeat the last words others spoke to her. Which is terrible for small talk and even worse when trying to file a forest noise complaint. Pan, of course, is smitten. He sees her and promptly walks into a tree. Echo stares. He giggles. She says giggles. He gasps. She says gasps. It's a disaster. Pan tries to impress her with his pipe. She blinks. He plays a note so sharp it startles a lizard into spontaneous molting. Echo just tilts her head and repeats molting. It's unclear whether Pan is falling in love or just delighted to hear someone mimic his chaos. He plays again. This time softer. Echo echoes it. For a moment they're in sync. Iga watches this budding disaster with an expression that could curdle milk. And then Pan gets bold. He gallops forward, reaches out. Echo disappears like mist. Just gone. Pan yelps. Echo somewhere far off yelps. And he's alone. The next few days he doesn't scream. Not even once. He just sits by the pool, blowing sad little notes into his reed bundle. Some high, some low, some hollow as wind through forgotten ruins. Historians still argue whether Echo ever cared for Pan or whether she simply pitied him or whether it was all projection from a deeply insecure half-goat god trying to make sense of the only person who didn't run from his noise. Pan certainly thinks it was love, and so he carves reeds, stems, bones, trying to perfect the sound she made when she vanished. The first true melody happens one morning while you're dozing near the fire. Aiga doesn't even flinch, she just listens. It's low, gentle haunting. The cave softens it, the forest hushes, and Pan for once doesn't grin. He closes his eyes and plays like he's whispering into the wind. You lie back and listen too, because for the first time his scream has become a song. By now, the hills of Arcadia know the sound of Pan's sorrow. Not his screams, those still come, especially when he steps on something prickly, or when a cloud looks at him funny, but his music. It seeps into the mossy folds of the land like dew, haunting and crooked and raw. You follow him as he wanders. He doesn't run anymore, not today. Today is for brooding, for leaning dramatically against trees and sighing like a mythological soap opera. He's gotten taller, hairier. His horns curl back just slightly. He's still Pan-child of the wild, but there's a glint in his eye now, something older, something lonely. He passes a rock, plays a note. The rock doesn't respond. He passes a stream, another note. The water bubbles, encouraging maybe, or maybe it's just being water. Pan reaches a quiet glade filled with reeds. He sits, takes a long breath, and begins weaving. No twine this time, just instinct. Wrapping the reeds into precise lengths, binding them with sap, aligning them like ribs. The first real panpipe is born here in silence. 7 reeds, each tuned to a different pitch. Some scholars believe the number is symbolic. Others think Pan just liked prime numbers. Historians still argue whether Pan invented the panpipe entirely on his own or if he borrowed the idea from river spirits who used to hum through stalks for fun before he made it dramatic. Either way, the result is haunting. He tests the first note. It's low, heavy. The second lighter, breathier. The third sharp and bright like moonlight cutting through a storm. Pan pauses, eyes wide. He plays them in order. A melody forms. It doesn't sound like a love song or a war cry. It sounds like walking alone through woods and liking it. You settle nearby, trying not to breathe too loudly. This feels sacred. Pan continues. The music rises, falls, wraps around trees and slides across moss like it's looking for a place to curl up and sleep. You hear rustling behind you. You turn slowly. A deer, then a fox, then an owl blinking in midday sunlight. They're listening. Pan doesn't notice. He's lost in it now. Head tilted, eyes half closed, hoof tapping a rhythm that no one taught him but the wind. Even Aiga watches from a distance, standing perfectly still, like she knows something has shifted. This isn't noise anymore. It's memory. It's the echo of echo. It's what happens when chaos finds rhythm. You blink slowly. The forest breathes. Pan plays one last note, high, clear, and aching. The owl blinks. The deer vanishes. The fox tilts its head and pads off. Pan lowers the pipe, exhales. He doesn't smile. He nods. Just once. The way people do when they've made peace with something, pain maybe, or silence. Then he stands, slings the pipes across his shoulder, and without a word, he walks back toward the hills. You follow, because now, wherever he's going, it sounds like the beginning of something. The air shifts. Not dramatically, not like a storm, but subtly like. The forest itself is exhaling after holding its breath too long. You trail Pan through a narrow goat path half shaded by olive branches and humming bees, the soil warm beneath your feet, and scattered with acorns that crunch with satisfying irregularity. He walks with purpose now. Still barefoot, still mostly fluff and mischief, but changed. As if the song he played unlocked something, not maturity exactly, but tone. He has tone now. Even his silences are expressive. He's taking you somewhere. You don't ask where. Mostly because Pan doesn't answer questions, he just makes goat noises and occasionally screams at trees. Eventually, the path opens into a strange clearing. You squint. There are stones here laid deliberately in a wide circle. Not sharp like a temple, but not natural either. Arranged. Whispering of purpose. Maybe ritual. Maybe a really intense picnic. Pan steps to the center, lifts his pipes, plays. One long spiraling note, then silence. You wait, and then the ground responds. Not in words, not in rumbles, but in a tuning, a subtle vibration you feel through your shins, like the earth is adjusting itself to listen better. Iga trots in from behind, looking extremely unimpressed. She flops down near a tree and begins chewing bark like it owes her money. Pan plays again, this time 2 notes, then 3, then a pause, and the air hums. You look up. A single branch sways no wind. A stone shifts slightly as though adjusting its spine. A frog croaks in the same key as Pan's final note. It's eerie, beautiful, and completely by design. Pan's discovered the resonance of the land itself. Historians still argue whether this grove was an early form of temple or simply a naturally occurring acoustic phenomenon that Pan stumbled into and claimed as his. Some even suggest that later sanctuaries to Pan were built because of this spot, not before it. You believe it, because you feel it. The way his melody fits here. Like water into a cup. He plays again softer this time. The tune is playful with a little stutter in the middle, like he's giggling into the instrument. The leaves shimmer. Not metaphorically, they actually shimmer. A strange golden sheen like sunlight caught in amber ripples across the clearing. You blink. Even Iga stops chewing. Pan looks up startled, then delighted. He dances just a little. A half twist, a leap, a joyful hop in a tight little circle. You can't help but grin. This is joy made audible. This is what happens when noise becomes presence. Pan plays faster. The rhythm builds. And suddenly the forest is moving with him. Not dramatically, this isn't a Disney musical number, but in little ways. Beetles match his tempo, birds sink their flaps. Somewhere behind you, water starts trickling at a different rhythm. You feel part of something. A small myth, maybe. A story the earth tells when no one's around to interrupt. Pan ends with a flourish. Just a single puffed note and a kick of one hoof into the air. Then silence. The forest doesn't applaud. It doesn't have to. Pan bows anyway. Iga sighs. You sit on a mossy rock, exhaling slowly. You've just witnessed the birth of worship, not from priests or temples, but from sound. From resonance. From one goat boy learning to play the world like an instrument. You close your eyes, and in the distance, something else begins to hum back. The next morning, the forest smells like fennel and something oddly metallic. You stretch your limbs and rub your eyes, still half dreaming of music and dancing stones. Pan is already up, of course, balanced precariously on a boulder, piping a melody that sounds like 2 grasshoppers arguing politely. Iga is nowhere to be seen. That in itself is alarming. You call out quietly. Whisper her name to the moss. Nothing. Pan shrugs when you glance at him, then squeals and points northeast. You follow the direction of his hoof, and you find her. Iga stands beside an old marble slab overgrown with ivy, half swallowed by the forest. It's cracked, moss-draped, but unmistakably shaped by human hands. A pedestal, an altar maybe. You pause. She's staring at it, or past it. You join her, brushing aside vines. Beneath the lichen, you make out carvings, symbols. Not words, glyphs. Spirals, goats, a sun with too many rays. It looks ancient even for Arcadia. More pattern than prayer. A ritual design, maybe. Pan arrives behind you, panting. He sees the carvings and his eyes go wide. He recognizes them, and suddenly it clicks. This was a place for him, not by name but by function. The carvings speak of wild music, of panic in open spaces, of echoing fear, meant to drive off invaders and protect the untouched. This is a shrine to chaos, to resonance, to sound that lives outside language. And Iga brought you here, not randomly, deliberately. Historians still argue whether Arcadians truly worshipped Pan before he existed, or whether myths like him were born because places like this needed a patron. Did Pan make the panic, or did panic need a Pan? You step back. Pan steps forward. He places his pipes on the altar. The forest stills. Even the wind holds its breath. Pan lowers his head, not in prayer exactly, but something close. A kind of instinctual deference. Like he's not the god here. Like the sound is. Iga nudges the back of his leg and then walks away. Just like that. She's done. Pan doesn't chase her. He watches. You watch. And the air around the altar hums very faintly. A tone not made by mouths or hands. Like the stone remembers something and is trying to say it back. Pan picks up his pipes. He plays once softly. The altar responds. It glows barely faint like moonlight seen through water. Not enough to frighten. Just enough to confirm this is the place. This is the song. You sit. Pan sits. And together, you listen to the oldest duet in Arcadia, Breath and Stone. The melody is strange, more shape than tune, more feeling than structure. It loops back on itself like a trail in the woods that leads exactly where it began. You start to nod off. Even Pan seems sleepy now. The pipes lower. The hum fades. Iga is long gone. But somehow, her silence still lingers. By now, you've stopped wondering where Pan is leading you. You just go. Sometimes you wake up and he's halfway up a cypress tree, snacking on bark. Other times he's sitting cross-legged by a stream, making friendship bracelets for frogs. Today, though, is different. He's walking with a scroll. An actual scroll. You blink. You didn't know he could read. You're still not convinced he can, but he's certainly holding it like someone who's either literate or very proud of pretending to be. He glances over his shoulder, eyes gleaming. You follow. The scroll flaps in the breeze. It's old parchment made from something that probably used to bleat. The writing is faint, spiraled, almost musical in its flow, like the script itself was sung instead of scribed. Pan stops beneath a crumbling arch, ruins, covered in ivy, half swallowed by the woods. Not a temple exactly, but close a forgotten way station. Columns lean like drunk shepherds. Carvings peek out like guilty memories. He sits in the middle, unrolls the scroll, and with all the ceremony of a toddler preparing a tea party, he clears his throat and begins to read. It's mostly squeals, a few chirps, one enthusiastic bleat. You suspect he's improvising, but then something strange happens. The wind changes, carries his words. The stones respond not with movement this time, but temperature. The air grows warmer, then cool, a pulse. Pan keeps going, and the scroll, it glows faintly. Not gold, not magic sparkle, but a soft rhythmic shimmer, like moonlight being breathed on. You lean in. The writing is changing. New symbols appear slowly, matching the tempo of Pan's voice. He squeaks. You squeak. Somewhere in the distance, a bird loses its mind. Pan pauses. The scroll fades. He frowns, tries again slower this time. This time, it works. One line appears a repeating pattern of curled spirals, dots, and the faint outline of what could be goat hooves or just very enthusiastic punctuation. It dawns on you. This is a musical score, not for humans, for land. A melody for terrain meant to be played onto the earth like ink onto vellum. Historians still argue whether ancient Arcadians believed sound-shaped geography or whether they simply recorded music as if it could summon rivers and frighten away thunder. This scroll might be evidence of that theory, or it might just be Pan's grocery list written by someone with dramatic flair. But Pan believes, and belief here does things. He stands, holds the scroll in one hand, his pipes in the other. He finds a place where the ground dips just slightly. Then he plays. Slowly, carefully, note by note matching the glyphs. The forest hushes again. This time the change is subtle. The moss grows thicker beneath your feet. The air sweetens honeysuckle maybe, or something ancient and forgotten. Even the ruined arch straightens just slightly. Pan finishes with a whisper of sound, then collapses backward with the satisfaction of someone who's convinced the mountain to take a nap. You lie beside him, both of you looking up at the branches above where one single bird chirps in perfect harmony with the last note Pan played. You don't speak. You don't need to. The scroll hums softly between you, and the forest remembers its tune. The next few days are softer. Pan becomes quiet. Not moody, just thoughtful. The kind of quiet that happens when someone has accidentally unlocked something important and isn't quite sure what to do with it yet. He spends long hours poking at moss, watching beetles, rearranging stones in spirals that probably mean something, though you can't figure out what. You follow at a respectful distance. Today he leads you to a shallow cave nestled between two hills. Not dark or ominous, just gently shaded with a wide, yawning mouth and an interior that smells like damp wool and thyme. Pan steps inside. You hesitate, then step after him. The acoustics shift instantly. Your footfalls echo before they land. Your breath doubles itself, bouncing off stone. Even blinking feels louder. Pan lets out a low, curious bleat. It reverberates. He grins. And suddenly you understand. This is not just a cave. It's an instrument. The natural acoustics shape every sound into something else. Bigger, stranger, more intentional. He raises his pipes and begins to play. The music stretches, lingers, blooms not like a song in the open forest, but like perfume in a sealed room. Thick, resonant, almost tangible. A single note bounces back 3 times. Another one returns warped like it aged a little on its way back. Pan is delighted. He plays faster. The cave answers, and you feel something shift. Not in the cave, in Pan. It hits you then. This isn't just where he discovered his echo. This is where echo vanished. Not the goddess, though that's where the myths might have gotten confused. Not the nymph either, though her tale echoes too. No, this is where Pan first heard the world mimic him and believed it was talking back. Historians still argue whether Pan's famed scream, his so-called panic, originated here. Some claim it was first heard during battle. Others say it was born in love. But a few fringe scholars insist it started with one note in one cave played back at him in just the wrong tone, or maybe the perfect tone. Because here, Pan plays, then stops, waits, and the cave screams back. It's not terrifying, not really, more like a very startled goose made of stone. Pan laughs so hard he falls over. You flinch instinctively. That scream tickled something ancient in your spine. He does it again. Another shriek. The cave doubles it, triples it, and throws it back so fast it sounds like there are 3 Pans screaming at once. You start laughing too. You can't help it. It's ridiculous. The cave is a prankster, a choir, a collaborator. Pan doesn't just play here, he trains here. You watch as he experiments. Different tones, volumes, directions. He learns how sound curls where it lands, how to make it come back louder or softer. You begin to see it. Panic the word, the myth, the feeling. It wasn't invented. It was discovered. Here, in a cave that screams when you scream first. Eventually Pan settles. He plays a soft rising note. The cave returns it not louder but gentler. You both sit backs against the cool stone, and for the first time the echo doesn't come back. It stays. Somewhere in the walls, lingering, listening, and you wonder how long it'll hold that note before letting go. The cave stays with you even after you leave it. You keep hearing echoes where there shouldn't be any on mossy trails beneath still trees, even in your own footsteps. It's as if the forest has decided to rehearse now that it knows it can. Pan is unusually calm today. Well, relatively speaking, he's braided flowers into his fur again this time with far too many bees, and walks with the serene confidence of someone who knows a secret but is waiting for the right moment to whisper it. Eventually, he brings you to a ridge. Below it, a clearing filled with goats. Dozens of them, not just Iga. Every color, every attitude. Some perched on rocks like smug statues, others gnawing aggressively at ferns, one sleeping directly on its back, with its tongue out like it has seen too much. Pan bleats loud and long. The goats bleat back. And suddenly this isn't just a herd, it's a choir. You blink. Pan raises his arms and conducts with shocking precision. Each goat bleats on cue. Some long, some short, some weirdly melodic. A few goats, clearly the overachievers, add hoof stomps and synchronized sneezes. It's absurd. It's majestic. It's the world's first goat symphony. Pan beams. He's not just playing music anymore. He's orchestrating life. You sit on a sun-warmed rock trying to process the image of one goat doing what could only be described as interpretive bleating. Pan leads the performance to a crescendo, 3 goats bleating in harmony, while 2 more rub their horns against a hollow log producing a droning bass line that actually sounds kind of good. Historians still argue whether early Arcadian rituals involved animals deliberately used in musical rites. Some sources suggest certain herds were bred not for milk, but for the tones of their vocal cords. Fringe theories go as far as to claim Pan's entire mythos stems from an early attempt to musically weaponize livestock. It sounds ridiculous until you see it with your own eyes and ears. The goats finish their set with a final defiant group sneeze. Pan bows. The goats scatter utterly indifferent. You clap politely. He squeals in delight and offers you a half-eaten turnip which you respectfully decline. You wonder what the point of that whole scene was. Then you realize it was the point. Pan isn't waiting for someone to tell him what a god is. He's deciding, and he's doing it through sound chaos and goat-led recitals in forest amphitheaters that don't exist on maps. Iga finally reappears strolling in from the west, chewing what may or may not have once been part of your bedroll. She snorts at Pan's theatrics, then sits, and for a brief magical moment she bleats, in tune. Pan's face lights up like sunrise. You lie back and close your eyes, the forest music still ringing faintly in your ears. You're not sure what day it is. You're not sure it matters. All that matters is this odd, echoing corner of the world where goats can sing and boys with hooves can conduct the trees. Sleep comes easily that night. Not because the moss is softer, not because the stars twinkle any differently, but because the world feels in tune. You dream of spirals, of hooves tapping rhythm into stone, of music that has no melody but still makes sense to the trees. When you wake, the forest is quiet again. But Pan is busy. He's drawing something in the dirt. With a stick. Tongue out very serious. It's a spiral, no surprise there, but it's surrounded by tiny scribbled figures. Goats, birds. One that might be you if you squint and assume your face is mostly eyebrows. He pats the spiral, then points to a small hill just past the stream. You sigh. You know what this means. Another hike, but off you go. The hill is bare at first glance. Just grass rocks, a few lazy butterflies who seem vaguely annoyed by your arrival. Then Pan stamps his foot. The ground shakes just slightly. A round stone in the center of the hill vibrates, then rolls aside. You blink. A staircase. Going down. Pan gestures after you. Of course. You descend. It's surprisingly dry. Cool. The air smells like cinnamon and something older than history. At the bottom, a chamber, carved walls, symbols, holes that once held torches maybe, and in the middle on the pedestal is a mask, made of wood. Shaped like a goat's face but smoother, sleeker. Not for a goat, for a human, or something close. Pan approaches reverently. He touches the mask, then looks at you, then back at the mask. He lifts it slowly, then places it on his face. It fits perfectly. And the change is instant, not physical, but something in the air stiffens. Pan's stance straightens. His voice, when he bleats, deepens, echoing through the chamber like thunder on velvet. The carvings light up, just a little, soft gold. And suddenly, you see, this was a shrine, not to a god, to a role, to the act of invoking chaos, sound, and protection through performance. Pan isn't a name, it's a title. Historians still argue whether multiple Pans existed, whether the god was singular or a line of woodland tricksters wearing the same mask through generations. This chamber suggests maybe both. Pan removes the mask, holds it out to you. You freeze. He squeaks, insists. You take it, place it gently on your face. It smells like pine sap and old laughter. The chamber hums. The carvings ripple. You're not a god, you know that. But for a moment you feel like one. Or maybe just someone who could be one if the forest ever asked nicely. Pan nods satisfied, then snatches the mask back and starts dancing with it like it's a tambourine. The moment's gone, and you're oddly relieved. You climb back up the light feeling brighter than before. Somewhere behind you the chamber seals again, and the mask waits underground for whoever's next. You're still thinking about the mask when Pan takes off running. No explanation. Just hooves pounding dirt, flowers flying from his fur, and that shrill giggle that always means trouble or possibly lunch. You run after him. Branches whip past. Leaves blur. A pine cone hits you directly in the face, which feels personal. Eventually, you skid to a stop beside a wide sunken basin lined with stone. A theater. No roof, no stage, just worn stone seats circling a mossy pit where something used to happen. Pan gestures proudly. You wait. Then realize this is the stage. The forest's first performance hall. A place where stories were told not by actors but by echoes. Songs, shouts, ritual calls, anything loud enough to matter. You take a seat. Pan descends into the pit. He begins with a dramatic spin. Trips slightly. Recovers with flair. Then he performs. But not a play, not a myth. He performs you. Every awkward step, every pinecone injury, every suspicious sniff at goat cheese. The audience made up entirely of indifferent birds does not applaud. You do, though, because it's funny and oddly moving. Pan pauses halfway through your life story to mime the time you tried to out-bleat Iga. You were certain you'd won. Pan's reenactment reveals Aiga actually rolled her eyes and walked away mid-squeak. Rude. Pan's next act is stranger. He reenacts something you haven't done yet. A mountain, a storm, a lyre broken in two. You tilt your head. Is this prophecy or just improv? Historians still argue whether Pan possessed oracular powers or if his chaotic nature simply accidentally tripped over the truth once in a while. Some point to myths where Pan appears in dreams warning of disaster. Others say he just shows up uninvited, eats your shoes, and leaves. Hard to say which version you're living, but this reenactment stirs something. Pan ends his show with a deep bow, then collapses in the moss. You join him. Overhead, a hawk circles lazily, and you wonder if it's true, if stories told here shape the hills, if laughter left grooves in the earth. If one performance done right could echo for centuries. Pan covered in twigs looks at you, bleats once, then rolls over and pretends to snore. The show is over. You lie there listening to the quiet, and you realize this is history, not carved in stone, not sung in temples, but lived, reenacted, remembered through goat mimicry and cave acoustics and spiral maps in the dirt. And somewhere deep inside you, the mask hums faintly, waiting for its next cue. Morning brings fog. Thick, low, the kind that turns trees into silhouettes and makes every bird sound 3 feet taller. Pan naturally treats this like a gift. He wades into it like a child into a snowdrift, arms outstretched, tongue sticking out, trying to taste the weather. You follow because of course you do, up winding trails until the fog lifts just enough to reveal an old crumbling archway. Beyond it, a ring of stones. Not grand, not Stonehenge-level impressive, just cozy. Each stone is different. One cracked down the middle, one covered in moss that looks suspiciously like a mustache. One very clearly shaped like a goat, though historians would probably call it coincidence. Pan steps into the center and hums. Not a tune, a note, low, steady. The stones respond. A vibration. Not sound exactly, but presence. The sense that something is awake even if it's just the memory of itself. Pan hums again. You join him, unsure, your voice cracking like a teenager's on the first try. He grins, encourages you. You try again. This time something stirs. The mist seems to pulse. A wind moves in a perfect circle around the stone ring, and suddenly the world feels like it's listening. You hum louder, and the stones seem to lean in. Historians still argue whether stone circles like these were meant for worship music or weather forecasting. Some claim they functioned as ancient instruments. Others say they were calendars or joke stages for bored shepherds. But here in the fog, they feel like friends. Quiet ones, but steady. Pan hums once more, then shouts. The sound slams into the stones, bounces, bends, returns with added harmony. Iga appears from nowhere and sneezes, ruining the moment. Pan falls over laughing. You can't help but laugh too. The stones don't seem to mind. You lie on your back in the circle. The sky slowly brightens, the mist rising like a curtain call. And for a moment everything is soft. Time, sound, memory. Like the world is humming with you, not at you. You close your eyes. Feel the warmth of stone. The distant bleat of a goat. And something inside you matches the rhythm, not quite divine, but something close. You leave the circle with stone-scented skin and the kind of silence that hums softly in your bones. Pan walks ahead now, unusually quiet, plucking petals from thistles like he's counting hours. Aiga trails behind you, which, if you've learned anything, means she's planning something. Eventually, you arrive at a grove you haven't seen before. Everything is curved. The trees bow inward, their trunks bending like dancers frozen mid-gesture. The branches form a kind of natural dome, and the air is thick with the smell of cedar and something faintly citrusy like oranges that never ripened. Pan stops, points. At the center of the grove is a bowl, stone, ancient, covered in spiral carvings so dense they overlap like someone pressed hundreds of thoughts into it without waiting for the first to finish. It's filled with water, perfectly still, no reflection. You lean closer, still nothing. No sky, no trees, not even your nose hovering over it. Pan gestures touch it. You hesitate. Then do. The moment your finger breaks the surface, sound returns. Not loud, just present. A crackling. A note. A ripple of something too old for language. The water flickers. Images flash. A goat with wings. A boy climbing a ladder made of lyre strings. A mask shattering, then reforming backwards. Pan watches your reaction, solemn now. He knows this isn't just fun anymore. The water shows more this time, a spiral. And you realize it's not a symbol. It's a map of everything you've seen. The cave, the shrine, the echo theater, the mask. Each point a turn in the spiral. Each event a rung in a coiled staircase winding downward or upward depending on your mood. Historians still argue whether spirals in Greek myth were merely decorative or symbolic of transcendence. Journeys inward or routes to madness. The debate goes nowhere because, frankly, spirals don't answer emails. The bowl pulses once more, then goes still. Pan reaches into the water, pulls out a pebble, hands it to you with great ceremony. It is unmistakably just a rock, but you pocket it anyway. He nods. You nod. Aiga yawns so loudly it sounds fake. The moment breaks. The trees seem to straighten. Pan skips away, whistling a tune with too many notes. You glance back once at the bowl. It reflects now, but only the sky. By the time you return to the glade, the air has changed. It's golden now. Not just the light, everything. The leaves shimmer like coin foil, and even the shadows seem gentler, as though they've softened for your sake. Pan is already there, waiting. He stands beside a tree you hadn't noticed before. Its bark twists upward in slow motion, and at the top, hidden beneath branches like protective arms, is a small wooden altar. Laid upon it, the mask. Again. But this time, something's different. It's glowing, just faintly like it remembers being worn. You climb the gentle slope. Pan steps aside. No pressure, but the kind of silence that implies you could if you wanted to. You lift the mask. It's warm. It smells again of sap laughter and something unplaceable like storm clouds that never arrived. You press it to your face. The forest holds its breath. And suddenly, you hear it all, everything. The ancient songs in tree roots. The goat-led choirs still echoing in bark. The thunder trapped in old stone. You aren't becoming Pan. You're remembering what it felt like to be sound itself. Pan twirls beside you. Not jealous, not nervous, just proud. Aiga watches, chewing a branch like it owes her money. You step down from the altar. The forest exhales. The glow fades, but the hum doesn't. It stays in your chest like a second heartbeat. Pan offers you the stick he carved spirals into way back at the beginning. You take it. You don't ask if it means anything. You already know it doesn't matter. You sit together for a while. No story left to chase. Just roots, shade, goat snores, and one final breeze that loops through the trees, carrying your hum further than your voice ever could. The mask rests beside you, quiet now, waiting maybe for someone else. Or just dreaming of spirals, of caves, of the goat who once taught a god to scream, and how that scream became music, and how sometimes all a forest wants is to be heard. And so, with your breath softening and your limbs gently sinking into stillness, the spiral winds to a close. The forest dims around you, leaves rustling like whispered lullabies, branches swaying with the rhythm of your heartbeat. The air cools just enough to make you pull your blanket higher or nestle deeper into your pillow. There is nothing more to do. No goats to chase, no shrines to find, no masks to wear or remove. Only the quiet. Only the sound of distant echoes settling into moss and stone, like sleepy footprints too tired to press any deeper. The mask is still. Pan is gone. Or maybe he's not. Maybe he's the whisper you'll hear tomorrow in the trees outside your window, or the odd squeak of a pipe that sounds like a laugh, or a shadow that dances just slightly out of rhythm. Either way, you're safe. Carried by myth, folded in vines, tucked in by a story older than memory. Let the spirals fade. Let your breathing slow, your eyes fall soft, your thoughts unfurl like morning fog. Let the forest watch over you. Let the silence sing. Let go.